Welcome back, guys, to the next episode of the Big Gay Overalls podcast. My name's Lisa Kirkman, and I'm here for another week of pondering and deliberation of a week that was. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you to everyone who sent comments and messages on the last episode. Please, if you don't already, head over and like or subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, amazing. For some reason, a lot of us queer creators seem to be a bit shadow banned at the moment. So even if you're listening to this on your favorite platform, if you could head over to YouTube and, give me a like, a subscribe, play it there, that would be amazing. That would, mean the world to me. It means that maybe the content will get to somebody who really needs to see it. But please share it, like, subscribe, follow us on the socials. I really appreciate all of that. But anywho, on to this week. So last week I dug into some of the stuff I'd been sort of reflecting on after having a week back at, my old home. And this week I've been looking through the socials and just seeing a general vibe of things. And I heard a really interesting clip from Steph Tisdale, who I'm going to get on the podcast. She's an Australian actress. She was co-hosting Mardi Gras, and she's recently come out late in life. And she made the comment about, not knowing where she fits in or how to fit. And it really got me thinking, because something that I was, struggling with or wondering about is this whole concept of, am I doing gay wrong? Like, what's the thing? And when you come out late in life, we can feel like there's this invisible checklist for us to have. Either we've missed it or we've done it. But we still feel like there's some gaps. And early in my journey, I thought coming out was like the finish line. You come out, you tell the world who you are, and then we all get on with our lives. But that's not necessarily the case. Once I said the words and I stepped into the light of my truth, I thought the rest would all just fall into place. Everything would just be tickety-boo. And, all the years I spent wrestling with who I was and the secrecy and the fears and the doubts, it would all be exchanged, and I would suddenly be the font of clarity and wisdom and calm. But that didn't happen. Once I came out, instead of certainty, I felt lost. I felt like, I'd been thrown into the deep end of the swimming pool, and I sure as shit could not swim. I was paddling, keeping my head up, but I didn't know how to get to the side, or even, what the side looked like. I was 46 and a half. I'd been married to a man for most of my life, and then suddenly trying to figure out what it even meant to be gay. Like, what does that mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like? I knew it was who I was. Like, I felt that deep in my bones, and I knew, like, even after my Catalyst relationship, I'm like, even though I tried to justify that, saying it wasn't about the gender, it was about the person, but it wasn't. But I felt like a huge imposter in that space, because, no one will tell you that coming out doesn't erase the years you spent like living as somebody else and hiding and not wanting to be seen. And no one tells you that you might feel like you're speaking a language that you never learnt fluently, and you're trying to figure it out. And even where you fit. Am I this? What's this label? What's that label? And I've done an episode way back at the start on labels. But, even when I went into my first queer spaces, I felt like I had a neon sign over my head that said, new lesbian alert. And in some ways, and I know that this is not the fault of anybody and didn't actually happen, this was in my head. Instead of like feeling like welcome and part of a tribe, I felt like I was, failing some invisible test. The first thing I went to as a not openly gay woman was we have a Pride festival. But I was walking around it going, like, do I fit in here? Do I belong? I didn't have the right narratives, the right stories. I didn't have the right past. I didn't even know if I had the right words. And, I had this question like, am I doing this wrong? Maybe, I don't know. I thought it would be like something intuitively, like you just knew how to be gay. And I feel like that because you often hear about it in some of the late in life groups, particularly for a lot of the women who are dating, where someone who is classed as a gold star lesbian, e.g., like they've never been with a male, tend to look down on people who have been with a male partner, or they're not trusting of people who, identify as bisexual even. And it gets really muddy even in our own pond. And I feel like there's this pressure like to do gay right. And I know it comes internally, so don't shout me down and say no, it doesn't exist, but our internal feelings. And I feel like that there's like this unspoken expectation that once you come out, like you just know how to be queer. But when you come out late, it's more complicated. And, we're coming to this party with a lot of baggage and, life experience and trauma and history. If you came out as a baby gay when you were 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever, like, and particularly today's generation, you can come out, it's all, it's generally pretty positive. People are more accepting. There's less questions. There's less wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth and whatever. But when you've lived a life one way and then you're now reintroducing yourself to the world in this other way, it gets quite messy, and there's a lot of stuff that you got to unpack first, and no one tells you about that. Spoiler alert, here I am giving you the lowdown. And I feel like we get overwhelmed with the identity. Like suddenly you're trying to fit into a world where you were never part of it. You looked at it from afar and you're like, maybe that's me. You're curious. You don't have the baby dyke ears to fall back on and to get your training wheels. You don't have a queer dating history. You don't even know what you don't know. You don't know what it looks like. All these acronyms, and this person prefers to date these sort of people. So if you fall in this category, that's very confusing and overwhelming. All at the same time as trying to figure out what's my identity in this ecosystem. And it's really easy. Like I felt like an outsider for a large part of it because I didn't feel like any predetermined label fit me. I wouldn't say I was butch or dyke or definitely not femme, but, I'm not fully mask either. Like, I'm terrible at home improvements. My wife is amazing. Like, but I'm great at logistics and planning. Like, I just don't feel like I fit neatly into a box. And sometimes when you go into queer spaces as a newly queer person, it can feel intimidating because you don't have the lifelong shared experiences. Your journey is just starting, whether it be 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever. You're just coming into this space. You're like, oh, I don't have any history here. And you walk in and you can hear people talking about their first pride at 18 or their crush on Shane from the L Word, which if you're late blooming, you will have watched the L Word like 10 years after it went off the air. People talking about their years of navigating queer dating, and you sort of feel like you're on the outside looking in. You're sitting at a party and you're like, I don't have a story to tell here. And so I felt like it was about getting into a game of catch-ups, that like I had to prove my queerness. So maybe I should shave my hair, maybe I get more tattoos, maybe I get a rainbow flag tattooed on my arm. Not that I did. Like we've got to make up for lost time. Some people talk about how they just started dating frenetically to you're having a second adolescence. It's really tricky. Like, should I throw out all my wardrobe and get new clothes? Will people take me seriously if I don't look gay enough? But then will they judge me if I look too gay? What the fuck? It is noisy and messy. Welcome to the inside of Lisa's brain. And I think sometimes part of it is we have this fear of not being queer enough, whatever that is. Like, is there even such a thing? And, you've got this voice in your head. And when I say you, me, had this voice in my head that whispers, if I was living a heteronormative life for so long, then how do I know I'm really gay? What have I done that lets me deserve to claim this identity? What if I'm too late? Is there such a thing as being too late? And those are some fears that, keep you quiet in queer conversations because you don't want to be the one who doesn't know the references or the in jokes. You know, I see in the Facebook group someone is embarrassed to ask a question about something or to ask what does that mean that someone's talked about, like, and generally people are pretty supportive and they'll explain it, but then sometimes there is the odd person that is like, well, you should know that, like, oh, you don't know that, and it doesn't make it a free space for people to, ask questions without judgment. And you don't want to be the person who doesn't know, but it's kind of that fear that ticks you over and makes you hesitate, I guess, before calling yourself a lesbian or queer or gay, because for so long your identity was something else completely, and you didn't have to create that identity. It was more or less created for you as you grew up and went through the stages of life and the expectations. Spoiler note, burn that script to the ground because you never created it. But, you know, you didn't have to figure out what being you was like because you were just told and taught. This is the box you're in and this is what you do. People like us do things like this. So, these are some of the acrobatics my brain did. And, the worst part of all this is that no one tells you this is normal. And that so many late blooming lesbians feel the same way. So here I am telling you, this is normal. And many of us feel the same way. And there's no like secret hack to getting through this, but just understanding that that it's okay to be you and take whatever time you need. Just because you came out today doesn't mean you have to be running around dating tomorrow. If you want to run around date tomorrow, that's fine too. There's no, spoiler alert, there's no right or wrong way to be gay. Be a good person, be a good human, have some grace for yourself and have some grace for others along your journey. But in reality, you do you, boo, in the best way that you know how and whatever feels comfortable. And because we're figuring out this identity as we go, like you're figuring out what's my style. Like I went through a thing going, maybe I don't want to wear, these sort of clothes anymore. Maybe I don't want to, and that wasn't about being gay. It's like, well, I have 1,001 CrossFit t-shirts. I'm wearing one today. And I'm like, well, I don't own a gym anymore. I don't coach anyone face to face. I still love it. I'm still a fan. Do I want to wear these t-shirts all the time? Like maybe I'll wear more country, Wrangler, Ariat kind of things. Is that the look I want? Do I want to wear a cap? Do I not want to wear a cap? Like, do I wear boots? Am I a joggers person? Like, holy shit, Lisa. Like, it gets exhausting trying to figure out who we are. So, the truth is, from my perspective, I'm not the font of all knowledge and clarity, like I said at the start. The truth is, like, queerness isn't something that we perform. There's no set script, no set layout. This is what queer is. Like, watch the Mardi Gras. Wherever you are in the world, there'll be a Mardi Gras somewhere or a pride parade. There is 50 gazillion ways to represent your queerness. And it's not like study or episodes of, a favorite TV show that you need to catch up on. You don't need to do study notes. You don't have to earn your seat at the table. If you identify anything under the, rainbow umbrella, then pull up a chair, sit down, you belong. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Like, you don't have to justify to anyone why it took you so long to come out, what your particular journey was. Your story is yours, and that's enough. Like, you bring along with your story so much good stuff. Like, initially, you're going to see that as trauma and baggage and stuff that's holding you back. But in reality, there's stories of power and resilience and like experience that lets you know you can overcome pretty much anything because you've lived this life. Now you're changing the narrative. But those things are like weapons in your arsenal that you can use to take yourself forward and be stronger with, and not like be proud of your story and of your journey, because without that, you don't arrive at this point. I'm a really strong believer in the fact that we wind up exactly where we're meant to be at the time we're meant to get there. Now, sometimes it could be a shitty situation and you're like, why the hell am I in this situation? And that's hard. But there's always a reason, like, hindsight is fantastic. When we look back, we go, oh, that's why I had to go through that. There's always challenges and there's always things, but, your story has brought you to where you are, and you need to be proud of that story and what you've overcome, and there's no checklist for being queer. You don't need to have watched The L Word and then the reboot of The L Word on repeat. You don't need to. It's okay. Or Lip Service or any of the other shows, Queer as Folk, whatever it is that your jam is. You don't need a specific aesthetic. You can be you. As long as you look in the mirror and go, I am fine today. I look good. I feel good. Have at it. You don't need to fit into a box that makes other people comfortable. Now, these are reminders for me, primarily, but I'm sharing them with you. And you belong in this space simply because you exist. There are so many people that are no longer walking on the earth because the battle was too hard, and that's tragic. But if you've got yourself to the point where you are here, you're queer, and you're, working on living your best life, then, you belong because you're you and you hear it. Your queerness shouldn't be and isn't measured by your past experience. Like I said, what you've done doesn't determine how queer you are. Queer is queer. Gay is gay. Lesbian is lesbian. Bi is bi. Trans is trans. Like, that's it. However you were yesterday, it only matters how you are today. It's not about what you did or didn't do or who you did and didn't do before you came out. It's about who you are now in any given moment. How are you presenting to yourself, not to the world, to yourself? The rest of the world just has to accept it. So, there's a lot of work in figuring out your identity and then being comfortable enough to own it. And like, that was part of the reason, putting together this podcast and, the various projects that I have is around, like, realizing that I need to own this identity. I could just go, yeah, I'm gay, and keep it quiet and just live my life with my wife and no big deal. But I needed to put myself in multiple selves, just one of me, myself in a situation that, constantly made me affirm it to myself and be okay with it. Because coming out is just the beginning. Everyone thinks that coming out is the full story, but that's just the start. And as I've talked about numerous times, like, we have to come out get a gazillion amount of times in our lifetime, and multiple. And that's okay, because we can accept that and be good with that. And now I can say, someone said the other day to Sharon, oh, are you a couple? Yeah, this is my wife. Like, no big deal. And I am incredibly comfortable with that now. And, the real work that we have to dig into and that I'm still working through is that unlearning all the rules that I thought I had to follow. And even the concept of being, late in life lesbian or late bloomer, like, we're sort of taught as teenagers, if someone's a late bloomer, that's not a good thing. They're a bit slow. So I think we do ourselves a disservice using the term late, because there's so many negative connotations with being late, So we're not late. Our journey brought us to this point at exactly the point that we were ready for it and we needed it. I've, have often said that Sharon and I would have loved to have met 20 years earlier so we could have 20 more years of life together. But we would have fucked this up because we were complete. Had I even been living as gay and not been married and all the rest of it, there's no way that emotionally or spiritually that I could have had the depth of the relationship we had now, because I hadn't lived that next 20 years of life lessons to get me there. And so I think it's not about late. I'm just arriving when my ship comes in, and that's now. We don't have to change to be accepted. Like, we're always taught that you've got to change, like the chameleon, the lizard that changes color on whatever tree or leaf it happens to be on. Like, it's doing that to hide and blend in. So we have been taught through our lives that you need to blend in with the crowd. But for us, now that we're reclaiming identities, we don't have to. Like, the version of us that walked into and opened the door to our truth and claimed it and sat at the table and said, I'm here, bitches. That's already enough. We don't need to change. You don't need to be smaller or quieter or less. Just need to be you. And if you can look yourself in the eye in the mirror and go, I'm good with who I am, that's enough. And you don't have to be like everybody else. You know, your queerness is yours to define, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's pansexual or asexual, demisexual, trans, bi, lesbian, gay, queer, whatever you want to call yourself, that's yours to define. If we're all carbon copies and we're all RuPaul running down the street, the world is pretty bloody boring. Might be fabulous, but it's pretty bloody boring. Like, the rainbow is such a good depiction for the queer, the LGBTQI family, because it all sort of blends in and changes. There's no clear lines, and there's so much scope under that you can be who you want to be and your version. And that's all we need to do, is be ourselves. And that's it. And that's the gayest thing of all. Like, if I look at myself by my standard, I could not be any more gay. And it's really funny. I chat to one of my old friends and I'll send something that Sharon and I have done, and she's like, you two could not be any more gay. You two are so gay. And she means that with love. And it's so funny because, yeah, we're, we were talking to one of Sharon's oldest friends, and she's like, you two are just like an old married couple, sitting there, having our cup of tea before bed on the couch and just, watching trashy TV. Like, but that makes us happy. And that's our version. That's what we do. That's our life. And it doesn't have to fit by anyone's binary rules. So I guess as a reminder for me, like, we're not doing gay wrong. We're doing me and you're doing you right, exactly as we want to be. For the first time in our lives, we have taken ownership. We've taken control. We've taken, Jesus, let go of the wheel. I got the wheel. Like, we've taken control. We are in charge, probably for some of us in the first time of our entire lives, where we feel like we can make the decisions. So, if you've ever found yourself thinking, am I doing this right? Is this what a queer person does? Yes. Here's your tick. Here's your pass. You're doing it right. If you're doing you, then you are doing it 100% right, and I'm proud of you. And I think that's fucking awesome. There's no right way. There is only your way. And you're exactly right where you need to be. Yes, we've all got growth to make and things to learn, and we've got to evolve. Great. Well, we're doing that as part of the journey. But if we just stop and think, oh, I've come out, this is it, then we do ourselves a great disservice as humans and as people in the community. You're exactly where you need to be right now. And you'll move that needle tomorrow, the next day, and you'll keep growing and evolving. And you'll look back in a week, in 6 weeks, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, in a year. And you'll be amazed at the growth that has happened within you in that period of time when you look back. Like, someone said to me, where did they say it? Oh, it might have been a message. Said, I'd stuck up for myself in a situation with an ex-workplace, and just like not taking any bullshit and not letting myself get gaslit, not buying into reacting to, comments and whatnot. And someone I was talking to about it said, Lisa of 5 years ago would be so proud of you right now, because she would never have seen herself doing this and doing all the other fabulous things that you're doing, but actually saying, no, that's not right. And I'm not going to accept that. And I'm not going to play your bullshit games. And it made me pause and stop and think and go, yeah, actually, you're right. Like, I've know how to go, nope, that's not acceptable. I'm not, that's not who I am. So if you've ever felt like you're not gay enough, or you're doing it wrong, or you should have done it earlier, well, you didn't do it earlier, you couldn't do it earlier, you're here now, make the most of now. Like, just fucking live your best gay life and go out and be a good human and do what makes you feel good. So I guess that's about it for my ramble today. If you have any interesting thoughts on this episode, though, I would love to hear it. If share with me, like, something you thought you had to do to be taken seriously as queer, but later realized maybe it didn't matter, or when you felt like you weren't gay enough. Like, share that with me. I'd love to hear about it. Or if you have any stories, or if this resonated, or if you feel like that I've like talked complete and utter horseshit and it doesn't make any sense, tell me that too. I really, want this podcast to not just be Lisa's, brain dumps, but things that are relevant and that people might find helpful, because that's primarily me telling my story. If there's an aspect of my story that you think I've skirted over or glossed around, or maybe whatever, ask the hard question. Just reach out, send me a DM, send me an email. All the links are in the show notes, and I'm happy to dig into that. If you head over to Substack, there's a link in the show notes for my blog, Big Gay Overalls podcast blog over on Substack. You can shoot me a message there. TikTok, I'm still over there. I create some videos and some bits and pieces. Turns out it doesn't like clips from the podcast, so I might not do that for a bit. But Instagram, Threads, I love being on Threads. It's good for conversation, but Instagram, or there's a link to my email. Like I said, just hit me up with it. Like, if there's something you want me to look into, to talk about, if there's something you want me to cover, if there's something you want me to dig into, have at it. Let's go for it. Also, new in the show notes, you nearly forgot. I've started a Facebook group. I know I said I never would. I know, but the school thing was great. I love it, but it's just getting a bit expensive for me to carry. So moved it over to Facebook. Jump on over there, Embracing My Big Gay Overalls. There will be a link in the show notes. Come and hang out with us there. Whatever, share your journey. I am looking for guests though. So again, please reach out. Trust me when I tell you it's fun. I'll make it easy for you. We can hang out and you can just share your story. There's no set script or formula. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging with me. I'll see you next week. Take care. Don't be a stranger.